I've talked to business owners who have scaled their businesses and they've overcome pain. They've overcome troubles. They've tried to scale. They've tried to grow, and it's caused problems. If they knew then what they knew now, they'd have done it different. Let's do it differently than that. Let's learn from someone who's already been there, done that. Let's talk to Clay Archer. He's on Purpose Under Pressure next. Well, welcome back. My name's Bryan. This is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about developing sales and leadership success on purpose and under pressure. It's brought to you by the professional sales and leadership training team at Sandler by the Ruby Group. You'll find them in Akron. You'll find them in Columbus. You'll find them in Jacksonville, Florida. They're in Capital Region, New York as well. And they do their work across the country, helping businesses and organizations and leaders do their work on purpose. If your people are out there setting expectations, they're representing you, they're trying to get deals done on your behalf, well, you want them to do that the way you want them to do it, on purpose, the way you built your company. And that's the way they take care of business at Sandler by the Ruby Group. And if you're interested in that kind of a thing, making sure someone else takes a look at how you're doing it, trying to figure out a better way, another way, a more consistent way, you need to reach out to them. You can connect with the Ruby Group online at therubygroup.sandler.com. The Ruby Group, coaching leaders to win when the stakes are high. So let's get cooking. On today's show, I want to talk about pressure. And I think one of the most pressure-packed things to do is to scale your business, to start small, to grow on purpose. I think of a plant. A plant, you're going to plant and it's going to grow. It's going to grow like crazy if you let it, especially if you give it some feed and give it some sun. But if you don't grow that plant on purpose, I think it's a perfect analogy. If you don't trim it back and feed it the right way and plant it in the right place in the first place so that it can grow the right way, if you're not careful, you're going to get a weed and you're going to have to, it's going to die, or you're going to have to move it or something horrible. And if you just take care and do it on purpose, you can win with that plan. I think that has a lot to do with scaling a business, is how I understand it. And so let's talk about that. We're going to do it with Clay Archer. He is the CEO at DPC Technology, and he's our guest today on Purpose Under Pressure. Clay, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Clay, tell us a little bit, if you would, about your business, about DPC Technology, what you do. Tell us how you're doing, the good things that are happening, and let's go through the growth of your organization.
So I'm the founder of DPC Technology. We started when I graduated college in 1995, which is 31 years ago, long time. We're a managed service provider, so we do IT, and we mainly do it for dentists. About 80% of our clients are dentists. I started in doing just computer work for anybody. And my stepfather was an oral surgeon. My mom was a hygienist. My wife is a hygienist. And my father-in-law was a periodontist. And so I just naturally knew a lot of dentists. And so it evolved that way, kind of unintentionally. But over the years, it became kind of a blessing to be in that niche. It let us kind of excel and be a little bit better than the competition. And, over the years, it just kind of blossomed into a real growing concern. In the beginning, I really would just kind of do anything for anybody. Anybody that paid me $1 to do something, I would kind of do it. And it morphed into a more intentional business kind of in the early 2000s.
Yeah. Could you see that coming, where you were trying to do all kinds of work and you realized, look, this just isn't going to work?
Yeah. Y2K really solidified things for me because so many people needed work. And so I was able to kind of just have enough work to feed myself off the dentists. And that's kind of in that late 90s, the 98, 99, 2000 is where it really started to come into focus. And then my sister, who is my business partner, graduated from college in 2002. And my parents encouraged me to hire her. And she, if you're into traction or EOS,
Yeah, sure.
she's an implementer. I'm a visionary. And she is the classic implementer. And so it really helped us fuel that growth in the early aughts, and added more staff at that point, and started to get the back end of our business kind of really aligned towards growth.
So I'm really interested, and I know listeners and viewers are interested in this as well, because if they're starting a business, they're thinking, I just got to get rolling. I just got to get going. I got to take all the different work. I can't, a niche of a dentist, the first thing someone who doesn't understand it is going to say, holy cow, are there enough dentists?
Right.
How isn't that too tight? Aren't you passing up work? but I think you have a different story to tell as far as lining things into a tight niche.
Yeah, I was very lucky, like I said, about that Y2K, just making there be so much work that I couldn't. I had more work than I could do in that time frame, and so, and I was solo at that point, and so I had really had to. I had to raise my prices. It enabled me to raise my prices,
Hmm.
just do one thing over and over again, and get really good at it. I already understood dentistry, so I already had the lingo down. It was what we talked about at our family table. So if somebody said 116, 17, and 32, I knew what they meant. And so I could go in and talk the talk. So in those formative years, it definitely was really helpful to niche down. And then, obviously once you get good at something, then people refer back to you. And the growth just kind of started happening on its own. And that next phase from the aughts to maybe, let's say 2012, 13, 14, was about scaling up the back end of the business, getting technicians really good, uh, making it so that I wasn't the only one implementing things as far as having to actually do the work. I built to a team of probably 6 or 7 by the time 2012, 13 rolled around. And at that point, the next kind of phase was I joined a peer group. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, joining a peer group is incredible. Actually, the Ruby group is they do their training inside of my peer group now, but which is great because now we have
Oh,
other IT people that are in my same group.
oh,
But
that's cool.
in that time frame, I joined a peer group, and I had a couple of bigger MSPs at that point, 20, $30 million companies. One of them in Nebraska was really great mentor. And he was like, you need to hire salespeople, and you need to hire a couple at a time because one will probably fail. And we started looking at sales systems, and there's a lot in the MSP space. We used a company called Chartech that did a really nice job. But another peer group member of mine in Greenville, I saw them really getting traction with their sales team, and they were using Sandler. And so
Mm-hmm.
I joined Sandler in 2013, 14. I've personally been going to Sandler for that whole time frame. And my buddy Reed Wilson in Greenville, I said, "Hey, Reed, how long have you been in this? How long are you going to it?" He says, "I'm in it for forever.
Yeah.
I'm the coach, and I need to know. I need to be up on everything. I need to be there with them in the trenches." So I've actually been in Sandler for forever. But
Yeah.
that next phase of scaling for me was uh, getting out so that I wasn't the face of the company anymore. It wasn't just Clay, the computer guy. It was DPC Technology coming in, and for me, that was a really big inflection point in my company in the early teens to kind of build that out.
And so I'm really interested in, because sometimes I think as business owners, we're in the day to day and we can look back 10 years and say, yeah, 7 years ago I did this and 7 years
Yeah.
ago I did that. And we miss a lot of the pain. We miss a
Yes.
lot of we forget how hard it was.
Yes.
And I'm interested if you can take me back a couple of those stages.
Yes.
You talked about scaling, but there had to be pain there to force the scale.
Definitely.
Otherwise, we're just moving right along. And I'm thinking about young Clay Archer on his own, starting his business, doing sales and paying the taxes and doing the work. And I'm thinking about a one-man show. At what point did you say to yourself, I am not going to be able to keep this up? And what was the next decision you made, if you can
Yeah.
remember, that allowed you to kind of let it kind of start to blossom?
Yeah, it was finding friends to work with me on the weekends and like after
Yeah.
hours. So I had a lot of friends that would do that. It's fun technical work, and you have some friends that are into either using their hands or into computers. So I had a couple of friends like that. Are my third partner. Ironically, his qualifications of being my partner was that he was 16 years old and he had a pickup truck. Then we could haul a lot of computers. I hired a friend's son, and he was just an incredible. He had an incredible work ethic, and so he worked up to be. He was probably my second or third employee. I had a couple of people that I employed that they weren't long term fits, but he was my first long term employee that really kind of helped me scale there as well. But it would for a long time it was just getting somebody that would help you just pull wires on the weekend or bring some computers in and set them up on a countertop. And I was able to scale that way for a while, but then, shortly thereafter in the early aughts, it was evident that I needed to start hiring people and starting to get good at hiring people and building out a team.
Was that scary? Because now you're paying
Honestly,
salaries, now you're paying health insurance, now you're paying benefits.
honestly, it wasn't. I'll tell you the only time that it was scary for me. Um, they were my friends, and it was fun, and it was kind of, at that early stages of startup, it's kind of everybody grabs a gun, and it's esprit de corps, and like all for one and one for all. And to be honest, I kind of miss those days sometimes
Yeah.
because as you do scale, you lose a little bit of that. Um, but the reality of it was moving so fastly, and there was money to be made, and so there was never really, and I'm an optimistic person, I never felt a lot of risk there.
Mhm.
The only time that it felt scary was 2008-9,
Oh, yeah.
when the music just stopped.
Mhm.
And we were doing a lot of new office builds, so dentists will come out and they'll build a building, and the building's a couple $1 million, and there's probably $100,000 of tech that goes into it. And we were doing a couple of those a month there in the early 2000s, and that music just completely stopped in 2008.
Mhm.
And we had to pivot a little bit, but honestly, it was a good decision. I mean, it was a good, in retrospect, at the time it didn't feel this way. It made us start to do the pivot to recurring revenue, which
Mhm.
we were doing projects back then, and so those new buildings would be super lucrative. We would be making a few $100,000 a month in projects, and that stopped. And you realize, okay, I need to have something that's a little bit more predictable and a little less lumpy, and so that made the pivot to managed services, which also started to make the pivot to I needed to have people that could go out there and sell it.
Yeah. And selling, and that brings us back to this podcast. Selling has to be on purpose. They have to sell the way you are. You have to trust people to represent you in a way that can allow you to grow, and the right brand and things of that sort. Did you have any issues scaling up your sales force, scaling up your customer facing team so that you were proud of the work that they were doing and how they were representing you?
Yeah, and the biggest thing, and I this is my pre Sandler, and actually pre Chartech, because I think Chartech helped me, and I was seeking at this point to find the solution to this. Is I had a salesperson. I hired somebody. The dental company started doing IT. They didn't do well at it, and then they let those people go. So I hired that person. She was a wonderful uh, personality. Knew everybody in the industry. Just a perfect first salesperson to have. But we didn't have a language, we didn't have a system. And so what I would find myself is in my office being upset about not hitting a goal, upset about what are they doing down there, upset about, just upset with it that I just didn't have control. And it wasn't fair. It wasn't right. And I know that a lot of sales leaders get in that situation where they hire their first salesperson, they give them some activities to do, but they just expect that they're going to be as dynamic and as it's going to be as easy for them as it was for you as a principal. And it just never will be. A principal can go out and sell with no system. They just can, stick their finger to the wind and know which way the breeze is blowing, and go in and just baffle everybody with BS because they know everything in the business. They can make promises. They can lower their price. They can, do all these things, and they expect that first salesperson to do it. And then when this first salesperson doesn't succeed, um, there's no language there to correct them. There's no common ground to say this is what's right and this is what's wrong. And so, as a seeker, when I first found Chartech, it let me see, okay, I need to have a system of some sort. That system didn't quite work for me. I didn't, and there's nothing wrong with it's like having EOS or scaling up or a business operating system. They're all good. It's just a matter of using one that spoke to you.
Hmm.
And when I got into Sandler, um, it just spoke to me, and it was very easy for me to then turn to my salespeople or salesperson at the time and say, "Oh, we spilled the candy in the lobby," or we should have negative reversed them there. We didn't do an upfront contract. We didn't book a meeting from a meeting. This it just gave us a vocabulary. It gave us a common ground to instead of just going, straight to being, excuse my language, pissed because something didn't go the way I wanted it to go,
Mhm.
we could come back and go, that was 80% right, but the 20% that wasn't right was this, and this is what we could do to change it. And then we could go back to Pat, who is our trainer, and say, Pat, this is how the buyer tried to get us back in their system. They threw us a really good curveball. We didn't know the right thing to say. We said things that were probably not advantageous to getting the deal done. What should we have done differently?
Mm.
And we started to work on that, and then we started building a vocabulary of our own. Of, you know, we'd role play and we'd do these things so that the first 20 minutes of interaction was almost is it for us is almost on cruise control, right? There's almost very little that the client could do to us to throw us off track if we're on our game. I mean, we still, we're still human and we still mess up and we still have to come back and correct and ask Pat, what should we do? Oh gosh, we're stuck in email jail. How do we get out of email jail? But for us, for me as the leader, it gave me an opportunity to just not be fuming in the background about stuff that was out of our control and wasn't the salesperson's fault.
That you can't communicate either. I was talking, I think it was a couple of podcasts ago with, I think it was Chris Gibson, I believe, and we were talking about the idea of mini me's, hiring mini me's, people to do it just like we do,
Yeah.
and we already know how to do it. We can't do that, and so you have a system that helps you all be on the same language. I think it's really important. I think you've already said this, but I think it's really important that it's the right system. There's 100 sales systems out there, and they're all great, or at least good,
Yes.
but they're good for different types of people and different types of organizations. And I've found that the Sandler by the Ruby Group system just, I mean, it just is me. And
Yeah.
that's kind of fun. I want to ask this question, and I'm not sure what your answer is. I think I know it. You have a team too now. You have not just
Yes.
salespeople, but you have IT people and different
That's
people
right.
working in the company. Are you using the Sandler methodology and the verbiage and the text and the language across your team? It's not just for sellers, is it?
Looking at the typical salesperson, everything they do day in and day out, if we simplify all of that and really boil it down, they have two superpowers. First superpower that salespeople have is how they behave. Second superpower they have is what they say. As a seller, we only have two problems. We either said something or did something that we should not have said or done, or we didn't say something or do something that we should have said or done.
Are you using the Sandler methodology and the verbiage and the text and the language across your team? It's not just for sellers, is it?
It's funny because it's um, half of my staff. Now there's some of my staff that never interface this at all. But the way that we go out and sell is we have a salesperson who is non-technical, which has been great because honestly, the dummy curve is a real thing, and the
Mhm.
more somebody knows technically, honestly, that first salesperson that I had that I said was incredible and knew everybody in the industry. She knew a lot technically, so there was a lot of candy spilled in the lobby all the time. The way we do it now is we have a pre-sales engineer who knows all the answers. Go with a non-technical salesperson, and so the pre-sales engineer knows Sandler, hasn't been in Sandler, but knows Sandler long enough that they could probably teach Sandler because we use the language in those interactions,
Mhm.
so they know not to spill candy in the lobby. They actually go and they're there to be kind of seen and not heard. They do an analysis of the network in the background, but they are there in those interactions, and they're just there in case the client asks the same question two or three times, and you
Yeah.
have to give them an answer, a technical answer. They're there to bail the salesperson out and give the technical answer, but they also know the Sandler system and know that they're going to answer that question in a way that is going to try and get to the pain, or they know the pain funnel, and they know that if they do have to give a really technical answer, um, to limit what they're doing there, not to just spew.
Yeah.
And that pre-sales engineer now, they get a lot of windshield time with the salesperson because they go on that call physically together. And so they debrief afterwards. And so what they'll do is they'll get in the car, and I'm still the sales manager, although we are going to hire a CRO, and I'm going to be out of this position. CRO will be doing this. But we get on a Teams call together, and we debrief every single presentation. We debrief every single consult. And so that we can go, man, we did this. We shouldn't have done that. But those people, and my marketing people as well, know the Sandler lingo because we talk it. It's our language in our business now.
I love that. And I've been around Sandler a long time. I've been in sales teams for a long time. I've never heard of that approach of having a pre-sales engineer, someone that knows just enough to, well, even more, but is willing to share just enough, because you can be too, you talked about the dummy curve, and people who don't know what we're talking about, that's when you know too much. You're better off when you're asking questions instead of answering them.
Yes.
That's the short answer to what that is. But there's only so far you can get with, I'm not sure, I'll find out later. I'm not sure I find out later. The customer thinks these people don't know anything. You have to have a little knowledge. But as soon as you start spewing or dropping the candy in the lobby and telling everything you know, you're in trouble. I love that idea. And I'm wondering was there a time when you realized, holy cow, we have to have a pre-sales engineer in there, or we're going to be losing a lot of opportunities?
Yeah, for us, we're very systematized. And so our project in our service team gets variable pay. And so they have to hit margins, they have to hit customer satisfaction, and they have to hit E-rates, meaning that they are effective with their labor. And so we had always done that as they're the chef cooking the meal, so they need to be present when we're buying the groceries. So there has always been a pre-sales engineer that stops the salesperson basically from selling something that they can't deliver. And as soon as we put variable pay on those positions, meaning that their salaries are dependent on them being effective, we can't sell something in our business that service can't deliver, or obviously we'd lose employees. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling feedback loop there, where sales has to have service have some say in what's getting sold there.
I love that. I think that's so amazing. I'd love to talk to you forever about that. I had not heard of that idea of actually protecting the salesperson as well as that, away from that dummy curve where they're just selling anything. I remember one opportunity I had when I was selling. Customer would say, "Can you do this?" And I had great trust in our team. I was like, "Yeah, we can do that." And pretty soon we were doing everything for everybody. We actually had to kind of stop because we had made too many promises. You can sell too much.
Well, the big thing in managed service, and it's probably for every business, is across the board, is you're really trying to stop the sales to service silos from happening. You don't want service to say sales did that to me, or you don't want sales saying service won't let me sell anything. And so you have to balance that. They all have to be on the same team. And this happened to me very early in my sales journey. There is where we started to get siloed, where service and sales were two different teams, and they weren't necessarily rowing in the same direction. And so, that pre-sales engineering definitely makes that pre-sales engineer is now on the hook for what we sold, and can we deliver that properly?
Fascinating. I think you've done everything along the way, and I'm sure you've had pitfalls that have caused you to go back and kind of redo it and fix it. But it sounds to me like you've done things on purpose, and you've branched out and you've scaled on purpose. I'm interested now in the future, knowing what you know now, knowing what you've seen so far, knowing where you want the company to go. Yes. What are the hurdles that are coming along the way that are across the horizon that you're like, I'm going to have to do this so that we can do that?
Yeah, the big hurdle for us, and I think it's an opportunity for all business owners, but I think it's a hurdle at the same time, is consolidation. So private equity has come into both my clients, the dental practices, and in my space, the managed service industry, and so there's a lot of consolidation across the boards there. So there's a lot of pressure to you're going to lose some clients through consolidations. When a large PE firm goes and buys 20 dental practices, they probably are going to pull some of those services like internal IT or like external IT internally. And so, there's also some opportunity to be aligned with those companies to provide those services for them. So the marketplace is changing rapidly. Obviously, everybody's talking about AI and what does that make things look like over the next 12 to 24 months. And we are, obviously being a technology company, we're lucky that we are very invested in AI, and we are on the bleeding edge, as are most MSPs on the bleeding edge. What's happening there, but the landscape is changing. But both of those solutions, both of those problems also present a lot of opportunity. And the reality is, we are going to have to sell ourselves into or out of those kind of situations. Whether it's in the PE firms in dentistry are called DSOs, dental service organizations. Whether it's aligning yourself with the DSOs or being able to sell enough that when the DSOs come in, that you're able to find other clients that are replacing those losses, or that you're growing faster than they are. But the opportunity is for companies that are, it's the rule of 40, is your EBITDA times your growth rate, your organic growth rate, or your EBITDA plus your organic growth rate needs to equal 40. If you are hitting the rule of 40, when you do go to sell your business, it's going to be a very lucrative time for you, right? Those companies are really sought after. So whether you're looking to sell in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or never, getting aligned to those metrics is, either you're gonna have the goose that's laying the golden eggs at that level, or somebody's going to pay you for the goose that's laying the golden eggs. And so, really, the option to not be a good sales organization in 2026 is gone, because you're going to be dead, right? The PE is going to come in and take your clients, or buy you, and or AI is going to come in and make the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So you have to be treading that water really quickly.
I have one final question to ask you, and I think it's just a personal question. I want to find out for myself, and maybe people listening and watching will want to know this too. You mentioned earlier you're an optimist,
Yes.
and you're not so much afraid of the danger and the risk. We live in very trying, troubled times. Also, opportunity. I mean, you can look at AI as an opportunity and a problem, right?
Yeah.
Is it a blessing or a curse to be optimistic running a business in this day and age? Can it get you in trouble, or does it move you ahead?
I think it's a blessing. I'll also say that my grandmother raised 3 boys. She was a child of the Depression, and so my father's frugality came down to our family. I'm in my mid 50s, and I've been a saver all my life. So I part of my optimism is that I also, I'm always coming from a position of, like, I've got options. And I think I'm not a gambler. I am an optimist. And so I think that's a blessing. Although, I've got some peer group members that are gamblers that have just gone big, and they have gone, big dollars, big dollars. And so, I do think it's a blessing. I do think, these times, you do need to be cautiously optimistic. I think, you could put all your eggs in one basket in this day and age, and that not be a great thing. But I do think if you're financially literate and fiscally responsible and an optimist, I think there's a ton of opportunity out there for sure.
I think so too. I think on a day like today, we can say we make our own luck. And being
Yes.
St. Patrick's Day, we make our own luck.
There
We
you
do the
go.
right things, but you can't sit back. You
No.
got to go get it, and you got to do it on purpose.
Right.
Folks, if you're listening and watching this show, this is what this show is about today. It's about learning how other people are doing it, how they're finding out and overcoming their hurdles that they see, listening to how Clay was able to see this issue and then this issue and then this issue, and finding the right partners, finding the right tools to allow him to scale his business the way he wanted to scale it. I learned something. I've been selling for 37 years, and I think it's amazing that I can learn something that I've never heard of before. And I hope that this show can be that. So Clay Archer, thank you so much for sharing that. I imagine people may want to talk to you about some of these things, and I'm not sure, but are you willing to talk to them? And if so, how would they reach you, and how would they learn more about DPC Technology?
Sure. dpctechnology.com, carcher@DPC Technology if you want to email me. I also have a YouTube channel, DPC Technology. Some of you may know me from that. But yeah, that's how you get in touch with me.
That's Clay Archer. He's CEO of DPC Technology, and I'm glad that he was part of our show today on Purpose Under Pressure. Folks, thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. As you can tell, we do some great things here, and we do this every week, multiple times. If you like the show, go ahead and subscribe. You won't miss another show, and maybe tell a friend too, so that they can be on purpose. You'll find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at bryanmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. It's brought to you by the Ruby Group, coaching leaders to win when the stakes are high. Until next time, no matter how high the pressure gets, stay on purpose.